Why was Tsar Nicholas II so disliked in Russia? To start off, he was extremely indecisive. Often he delayed important decisions or made them too late. Unlike George V of Britain, Nicholas struggled to adapt to modern politics. He stuck to rigid autocracy, keeping all the power for himself. He refused to reform Russia, refusing democracy despite his advisors strongly urging him to. This made Russia seem old-fashioned and made it one of the last European countries to modernize. This showed his massive lack of leadership skills, which was needed at this time in Russia. In 1904, Tsar Nicholas declared war on Japan. He started this war because Japan launched a surprise attack at Port Arthur, China. As a result of bad negotiations, Russia was unprepared and completely underestimated Japan. This resulted in a number of losses, e.g. the Battle of Tsushima. This caused a lot of questions back home in Russia regarding his authority. It made Russia not only look bad, but highlighted how bad Nicholas was at judging foreign affairs. On January 22, 1905, peaceful protesters marched to the Winter Palace in St. Petersburg. Led by a priest, they wanted reforms like better working conditions and an end to the war in Japan. Suddenly, Nicholas' soldiers opened fire on the crowd. This was a massacre, leaving hundreds dead or injured. It became known as Bloody Sunday. People were angered nationwide. It showed how merciless the Tsar was and caused a huge loss in faith from his citizens. To them, he was no longer a leader or father, he was an enemy. Nicholas handled the aftermath badly. He reluctantly introduced the October Manifesto. This promised to do more parliament to the citizens, a step in democracy. However, this had taken months. To many it was too late or too little. Following the revolution, Nicholas tried to undermine the Duma. He tried to maintain his traditional autocratic method of ruling. He also went back on many of his promises of reform. This angered the people and politicians and made them lose more trust in him. Could it even possibly get worse for Nicholas at this point? Well, it could and did. Following Russia's entry into World War I, the nation needed a good leader for the conflict. Instead of hiring a commander, Nicholas decided to command the army himself. This angered many due to his previous substandard military performances in Japan. His decision caused massive army losses. Millions of soldiers were dead or injured due to his incompetence. Morale was at an all-time low. The performance was a complete and utter failure. This also brought on heavy economic strain for Russia. It caused food shortages, inflation and widespread poverty, worsening the already inadequate living conditions. Due to taking over as commander, Nicholas was to blame. His absence from the then capital St. Petersburg left the government in chaos. He'd left Tsarita Alexandra, his wife, and the highly controversial Rasputin in charge. Gregory Rasputin was a self-proclaimed holy man. He had significant influence over the Tsar's family. This was because they strongly believed he could treat their son, Alexei. His close association made the public lose even more trust in the monarchy. His behavior contradicted his holy man claim, as it was deemed immoral. Many believed he was manipulating the Tsar and Tsarita. This also raised corruption questions. There was political appointments from Gregory himself, which led to widespread corruption. Many qualified politicians were dismissed by Rasputin. A vast majority of the Russian population were peasants. Land reforms were slow and working conditions were harsh. However, Tsar Nicholas and his government failed to address these issues. The vast industrialization in Russia caused almost a new class of urban workers. These faced horrible working conditions, long hours and bad pay. This caused a lot of strikes and worker protests. On top of these, the poverty caused bread riots and hunger protests in major cities like Petrograd. It showed that the Tsar clearly also lacked an ability to provide for his people. The widespread protests became known as the February Revolution. In retaliation, Nicholas sent soldiers to suppress the growing unrest. Much to his surprise, a large amount of the soldiers instead joined the protests. Even the police turned against the Tsar. This put him in a lot of trouble. By March 1917, he was at a point of no return. Even his closest generals and allies no longer supported him. This put him in a position where he was forced to abdicate. This marked the end of the 300-year rule of the Romanov dynasty. It took him until last minute, when it was too late, to see the scale of the crisis. It was his fault for ignoring his advisors, who made the right decisions. Following his abdication, Nicholas and his family were held under house arrest. Nobody wanted to support or rescue him following the aftermath of his rule. In 1918, Nicholas and his family were executed in the cellar. See here. They were executed by the Bolshevik forces, later becoming the Soviets. This led to a communist rule of Russia until 1991, the USSR. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, like and subscribe for more videos. Leave suggestions in the comments for future uploads.